Video submission by Lillian. The other Reaper pops Shadow Reaping, so he has to try and deny the other Reaper first. Know of the damage and also dodge his skills. Here he goes for a smite from a really far distance, there's no way it's gonna land. And then afterwards he goes for a Pendulum Whipsaw, which he's also too far away from hitting him with. He should have gone for a Cable Step into a smite, Grimstrike, Sundering. But instead he goes for a smite, Pendulum Whipsaw. In general, he should be using the Grimstrike Sundering more than the Pendulum Whipsaw, especially because the Pendulum Whipsaw is a stagger, and it's really easy to land, and it does without any other CC before it. Where back hit Grimstrike and a back hit Sundering is pretty hard to hit without any other skills, like Xi helping him with a stun or something. Good Cable step here to stop the Shadow Burst. Definitely shouldn't have used the second hit of Shadow Burst. Shouldn't have hit the Retribution, seeing how he knew he had like at least half a second plus of him just standing there, not doing anything. The only way he was going to stop the 5-minute was if he had just gotten his Soul Reversal off cooldown, because he had no stuns at the moment. But I'm not sure if he would have been able to. Here he runs out of mana, and he dashes into the Shadow Burst after it started, takes both hits, and doesn't, when he could have Retributioned it, and gets hit by the Archer. So he takes a lot of damage, where he could have Retributioned and stopped all of it, or dash in a Retribution. Oh, he did a double shear into Pendulum Whipsaw, that's good, but this is the only time he does it during the thing, and he needs to get used to doing it more because it's really, really helpful. Especially on DPS. On a healer, it's a bit less helpful, but it's still very helpful to know it's like a Lancer's double shield barrage stagger. I guess we'll just say lag for that Stunning Strike. Should dash after Stunning Strike instead of going for the Death Spiral. Goes for the Pendulum Strike too fast when the Reaper's still getting up and doesn't get a stagger off on him, so he just dashes out before the Whipsaw. Good dodge of the Smite. Could have gone for a Smite maybe. You should still be selecting the healer, and that Sundering Strike went nowhere. Should be using Grimstrike, not Grimstrike, should be using Double Shear to try and find the Reaper that went invisible rather than Grimstrike, since it's a lot larger. Could have dodged a Sundering Strike and both hits of the Sundering, or both hits of the Shadow Burst. One thing you really need to work on is just denying damage and not taking damage at all yourself. Because like a lot of these things he could be dodging, because he has more than enough time to react and sees them, but still gets hit by them. Takes a lot of pressure off the healer. Good Cable Step. Style points a Whipsaw. And then style kill. This video doesn't like playing backwards. I guess forward button was working, because he does a dash into a smite, and the dash just goes sideways and the smite doesn't move forward either. Here he death spirals, and where he should have been using double shear to get the stagger off. Then he cable steps the GS, and then he goes for smite while not moving forward. On a healer that has GS, he should have gone for a double shear. Another reason why he should have the healer selected so he'd know ahead of time that he'd have to double shear. He hasn't seen the healer use his movement skills for a while, so he shouldn't have been using his Sundering Strike because I wasn't close enough to deny him or stagger him into it. So the archer has the lance. The priest has a really easy time dodging it, and the Sundering Strike is quite strong. So it's good to use it when you think you can actually hit it. In that situation, it was almost certain that was going to be dodged. And then he gets his mindset on using the whipsaw, and he ends up throwing it even though he knows that he's not going to hit it. Good retribution to deny damage though. I might have been out of range of that smite or might have just had GS. But afterwards he misses this whipsaw because he didn't look where the other person was, he just did a 180 and hoped that he'd be there mostly. And afterwards he goes for a Grim Strike where he could have gone a double shear and it might have stopped the healer from casting. But instead he goes for the Grim Strike Sundering, or Grim Strike double shear Sundering, and gets plagued, where he should have gone either not done the double shear or not done the double shear instead of Grim Strike. Slow bash by Xi, can't do much about that. Turns around before the stun gets off, so it's hard for either of the DPS to do front damage to him, or back damage, denies damage. Good peels for Xi. I'm not sure if that stun hit or not, but if it did, he should have gone into a Grim Strike instead of a double shear. Either didn't get stunned by that smite because of desync, or because he was in the partial animations of Shadow Lash that don't let you get stunned, staggered, or whatever. That retail was meh, but healers are like 50% maybe, a bit over, and both of the DPS are quite low, or at least the Reaper is, and so is he. He's at like 25%. He definitely shouldn't be throwing his damage on the healer. You should be throwing it on one of the DPS while trying to not get hit very hard. But instead he gets whipsawed and archered, and gets popped into passive relatively quickly. The stun whipsaw wasn't bad there because he's low, he needs the HP. Good soul reversal, but he gets instantly hit into a smite. Can't do much about it. Oh, he's just giving the archer back here. Good, a big arrow, and then the front damage from the Reaper, and it. He lands a good soul reversal, while the Reaper's still casting his Shadow Reaping. But he turns his camera around and doesn't see, and can't see the Reaper. So he doesn't see that he dodges it, and then he gets spited while it's still in the Shadow Reversal animation. Because he was trying to turn his camera around to be able to instantly smite without too much trouble. Instead, he gets dodged and smited himself. And it does a decent amount of his HP, 70%. Could have, not Sundering Strike. You could have Retribution, that Sundering Strike, so, which, did the 9 damage. But then it also would have been able to make him dash or hit the smite before that Shadow Burst hit to deny another 12k. I don't know what the dash to the side was behind that pillar, but I don't think it would have changed much, but it definitely didn't help. But I guess he wasn't thinking that because I was going to leash him into the middle off of Giga. I think either the healer probably had GS and the archer either dodged it or had a tenacity, so it was only the Reaper that was pulled in. Doesn't have any stuns up. Oh, that's pretty bad. He should have definitely smited instead of doing a slow sundering. Could have done a smite into Grimstrike sundering. Probably would have broken the Kaya's, so he would have gotten the KD. Oh, he should have double sheared instead of using that smite because the smite didn't hit anyone, and it would have been a lot easier to hit the double shear. But then use that double shear and just wait for them to either cast a skill or just wait for them to cast a movement skill or start casting a heal or whatever. And then just catch them in the animation and then get damage off on them during it. Gets good sundering off while the healer has no retail. Done Kabil step, do Shadow Burst while the healer's on the floor, big damage, dead. Making sure that you know how to use double shear into Pendulum Whipsaw at the plus 23 attack speed of solo queue is quite helpful. Can do a lot. It's mostly helpful against DPS since they're going to be moving a lot more and trying to instantly iframe out of your skills, where healers sometimes don't iframe out of your skills. But yeah, easy setups, especially for more mobile DPS, definitely helpful. Again, Smite into Grip and Strike Sundering is something you should be doing instead of Pendulum Whipsaw, unless both of those skills are down. Then you can go for the Whipsaw. But most of the time he had both of them up and he didn't go for either. So that's something I would change. Leyland definitely didn't do bad. He did good, but there's lots of stuff that he can be doing to better. Another thing is denying damage. It's like